Hello everybody, we're going to be going over the question commonTwo, which is the last question in this problem set, so you know it's got to be the hardest. So the story with this one, I was supposed to zoom in. There we go. This is a question where you have two arrays of strings and you're trying to find out how many times that the same string appears in both. I'm not saying this very well. You're trying to find all the strings that appear in both lists. How many of them are there? So for example, in here we have an array of ACX and an array of BCDX. So the C appears in both and the X appears in both. So that gives us 2. That's a count of 2. However, duplicates don't count towards it. So for example, none of these have an example of that. So I'll just run it and maybe scroll over. Hard to do. I'll zoom out a bit. Yeah, check this one out here. Oh, it's got AA, BB, C, and then this one has B and B. So even though there's 2 B's that are in common, it still only counts as a 1, because we're not trying to find out how many individual characters. We're just trying to find how many times a particular letter or a string is repeated. It doesn't have to be a letter. It could be any string, but most of these examples are letters. Okay. Oh, I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this, but hopefully the setup makes sense. And yeah, here's the solution. So what we're going to be doing is we have an I and a J that are going to be our indexes for the A string and the B string, and then a variable that's for counting. And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to switch over to this notepad document to represent what's happening. So what we're going to do is we're going to look in one array at its first position and the other array at its first position, and we'll compare them. There's an important factor in this question that makes this a lot easier. We can assume that the two arrays are in alphabetical order. So that's great. So what I can do is I can compare A and B. So if A is smaller, then I'm going to move I. If B is smaller, I'll move J down the list. And then when I find something that's the same, then I'll move them both. And I'll have to take into account duplicates. So here's an example of how this will work. So I take a look at the A sub I and B sub J, and I see that this one is smaller, so I move forward I. And unfortunately that also moves forward J, but that's okay. So then, there we go, so that wouldn't actually have moved J. Next time through the loop, I'll compare C and B. Oh, look at that, B is smaller, so I'll increment J only. Next time through the loop, I'll look at C, A sub I and B sub J, and look at that, they're the same. If they're the same, then I need to move them both. And conveniently, I guess pressing space in this case actually does move them both. And you do have to account for duplicates, so I need to move this over and over and over again as long as I still find C's. I didn't need to do that in this case. I can compare now X and D, so D is smaller, so I increment J. And I compare X and X. Oh, look at that, I count, so I move these both forward. Oh, look at that, the next time I go through this, my loop condition should probably stop me from breaking out. Or stop me from taking a look at what's out of bounds of the array. So that's basically the plan there. So here we go, here's the answer. Let's try to scroll down. I think I can get it all on one screen. Shouldn't have pressed enter and all these different things. Well, I could just kind of suck this in a little bit. I don't know, maybe I won't bother, we'll just scroll. Okay, so I'm using a while loop because I want to be able to control what I'm incrementing. With a for loop, it's always going to be doing the incrementation step at the end. Yeah, you could hack it so that it doesn't have it there, but I don't know, they made a while loop just for this kind of thing. And I'm going to use a while loop. So, I can't abide by that phrase there though. Sorry. So here's our while loop. And what we're going to do is I'm going to have my condition to make sure that I and J are both less than the length. Can't be or, they both have to be under. If either one of them goes over, or both of them for that matter, then you need to terminate this loop. These could be different lengths. So you'll notice in this example here, it both went off the rails at the same time, but it wouldn't necessarily have done so. So you have to check against either index going beyond the length of the array. So making sure both of them are still within. So then I'm going to use the comparTwo method, and if you're not too sure how it works, it basically will return an integer to tell you whether or not this one was alphabetically first or this one was alphabetically first. For more details, go look at my video for merge2. The merge2 question has a long explanation, fairly good. I wouldn't say beautiful, but I hope it'll make sense to you how comparTwo works. We'll go into that not too much in this video. So basically, it returns the integer to tell us, a negative integer if this one was first, or a positive integer to tell us if this one was first, or it'll give us 0 if they were the same. So pretty straightforward. If it's less than 0, that means that the letter that was contained in the A array was the smaller one, so that's why we increment I. And then we have an else if. We have a positive number, that means the letter that was in the B array was the one that was alphabetically smaller, so then we increment J only. And then here's the tricky one. If you find that they're both the same, I just have an else. Basically, if compare with 0, but I just use else instead of making a whole other if statement, because it's either greater than 0, less than 0, or equal to 0. There's no other possibilities. And what I do is first of all, I count it. I'm like, oh look, we found a character that is the same. So I do count plus plus, because that's what we're trying to find in the question. And then I remember what that letter is. I have this old stir, just to remember what letter was it. And that way I can start incrementing. I have 2 while loops that are basically checking to see, the next. Basically, I'll increment I, and then check to see if it's still that same letter. And if it is, I'll just keep incrementing. As long as that I'm still finding that same letter over and over again. But also I have to make sure that this is not out of bounds. So as long as we're not out of bounds, and we're still finding the same old string that was the equal one, we'll keep on incrementing. I'll do that for the A array, and I'll also do it for the B array. So we can just kind of skip on past. And that way we don't end up counting a run of similar letters more than once. So this is the way that you'll end up solving, I wish I could scroll, those run type questions. Like this one here, right? You got A, B, B. This one's like B, B, B. You should still only return 1 because the B is what's common between 2 of them. We're not counting how many are common. We're just like, oh, they both have the letter B, so that's fine. So those while loops are instrumental in just skipping past the extra B's in that example. At the end of it, I should have counted them all, so I just return count. And there you go. That's the story. This is a tough one. This is a pretty tough question, and I hope that the video helped out. It certainly is doable once you know how comparTwo works, and having these loops in there, pretty tricky. Let me know if that made sense to you or if you'd have more questions. Okay, thanks everybody.